The build-up for this matchup has a different energy, and you can feel it from the moment the conversation shifts to what Dallas needs to clean up and what Kansas City brings to town. The short week changes everything. Bodies are sore, game plans shrink, and every small detail becomes amplified because there simply is no time to reset the way teams normally do. You get a quick walkthrough, a handful of reps, and suddenly you're stepping into one of the most physical challenges of the season. Even without the classic Dallas throwbacks on the field, there's still that sense that this is not a normal game. It is a meeting between two franchises that expect to punch deep into January every single year, and both sides understand how razor-thin the margin for error becomes in games like this. The Cowboys roll in wearing their alternates, the ones that always bring a different vibe, and they enter this matchup juggling a handful of injury concerns that can shift the tone on both sides of the ball, depending on who suits up and who does not. The most concerning name remains Tyler Guyton, who essentially shifted from doubtful to out the moment the early week comments hinted at how his situation was trending. On the other hand, what originally sounded like a minor issue for Kydon Carson turned into something more complicated. The cramping explanation after last game gave everyone hope that the situation was simple, but a hamstring flare-up changes the conversation completely. When a player comes in limited on a short week because of a soft tissue issue, it is hard to feel confident. If he cannot go, that alters the rotations and could stress the back end of the defense in ways Dallas would prefer to avoid. Beyond those two, the rest of the list looks manageable. A handful of defenders moved from limited to limited again, but all signs point to their availability, and if Dallas is going to survive this matchup physically, it needs every one of them. Kansas City walks in dealing with its own issues. Losing Noah Gray and Trey Smith is not nothing, especially Smith, who has been one of their tone setters inside. The backup corner Chris Roland Wallace, sliding from full to limited, keeps an eyebrow raised, but everyone else practicing fully signals that the Chiefs have more stability on their side of the injury conversation. But a Thursday night game does not care about who is close to 100% and who is hanging on by a thread. Nearly every player across the league is dealing with something at this point of the season, and this type of turnaround exposes every bruise, every strain, every sore joint. What matters now is who withstands the fatigue and which coaching staff adapts fastest. Once you look past the injury lists, the matchups on the field begin telling the real story. The first one jumps out immediately. The Cowboys' pass rush against the Chiefs' offensive line that has slowly become more and more vulnerable. Every quarterback suffers when pressured. Every single one. The numbers might fluctuate slightly, but no passer in this league becomes better when bodies are collapsing the pocket. Patrick Mahomes does handle pressure better than nearly anyone alive, but even his production dips dramatically when defenders force him off his spot. He goes from slicing teams apart to becoming a version of himself that is still dangerous, but far more human. That is why this game demands disruption. Ezra and the rotational pieces inside have to collapse the interior because that is where Mahomes feels the most discomfort. Josh Simmons and Jawan Taylor can be inconsistent in pass protection, and Taylor's alignment issues have already earned him a reputation as a penalty-prone tackle. If Dallas can tilt the trenches early, it can change the entire tone of the night. That brings us to the larger strategic debate, how Dallas chooses to defend Mahomes and these Kansas City receivers. This is where the philosophy must shift because the numbers against man coverage say everything you need to know. Mahomes becomes a different player when defenses challenge him in man. His completion percentage drops significantly. His yards per attempt tumble. The chunk plays that normally come so easily do not materialize with the same consistency. And because the Chiefs rely heavily on timing and spacing, playing man forces them to win individual battles instead of exploiting voids in zone. The disparity is massive. When he sees zone, he looks like an MVP. When he sees man, he looks mortal. Dallas cannot afford to fall back into its comfort zone here. Running man coverage must be the priority, even if it comes with risks. Rashee Rice just tore up zone looks last week, but the moment the defense switched to man, his efficiency collapsed. That cannot be ignored. You live with the occasional big play if it means shrinking the window for all the other ones. Inside, the challenge grows even tougher. Chris Jones may not be stacking huge sack numbers this season, but that does not change how disruptive he remains. His pressure rate stays elite, and his knack for changing the direction of a play without ever touching the quarterback still stands out every single week. When he wants to take over a game, he can, and Dallas knows that far too well. Booker, Smith, and Baiadas will all be tested repeatedly because the Chiefs love moving Jones up and down the line to find a matchup they prefer. Dallas must anchor, communicate, and avoid the mental lapses that turn a second and manageable into a drive-killing moment. The next focal point becomes the chess match between Dak Prescott and Steve Spagnuolo. Spagnuolo has never been shy about dialing up pressure, especially on third downs. He trusts his defensive backs to handle isolation, and he trusts his timing as a play caller. The difference this season is that the Chiefs have not been generating the same level of pressure or sacks, even when they bring extra rushers. The numbers sit near the bottom of the league in pressure rate and sack rate, despite a relatively high blitz frequency. Meanwhile, Prescott historically thrives against the blitz. Outside of a couple of tough outings this season, he consistently punishes defenses that send extra bodies. The problem is that Spagnuolo does not simply send pressure. He disguises it brilliantly. Nickel blitzes, late rotations, delayed triggers from players you do not expect. The Cowboys need quick answers built into the structure of every early down, especially because the Chiefs will not hesitate to test Prescott's timing and anticipation. Equally important is how Dallas handles first down runs against a Kansas City defense that has quietly become very effective in that area. Early in the season, teams found success pushing them back, but that trend flipped completely over the past several weeks. The Chiefs have shut down first down rushing attempts from multiple offenses, holding teams to tiny gains and forcing them into long second and third downs. With Schottenheimer committed to running the ball whenever field position and down and distance allow, this becomes a critical battlefield. If the Cowboys get stuffed early, they play right into the hands of Spagnuolo, who thrives on third and long scenarios. If they find even modest success on the ground, they can open up the entire playbook and keep the Chiefs from dictating the pace. From there, individual player performances begin to shape the narrative. Donovan Wilson becomes a central figure when discussing how to manage Travis Kelce. Even if Kelce is not separating the way he once did, he still has an uncanny ability to find pockets of space and to adjust his routes based on what he sees in real time. Against zone, he remains lethal. Against man, he slows down but still demands attention. If Wilson draws the assignment, he cannot afford hesitation. He must anticipate the leverage Kelce wants and cut it off early, because once Kelce starts bodying defenders at the top of routes, it becomes nearly impossible to recover. CeeDee Lamb enters the night with every expectation placed directly on his shoulders. The efficiency numbers still favor him, and his yards per route run remain impressive, but the drops in key moments have been glaring. The Cowboys need him sharp, decisive, and locked in because this game demands reliable playmaking from their top receiver. Schottenheimer will force the ball his way, and he needs to respond with the type of performance that reclaims control of the passing game. At the same time, the growing emergence of Pickens adds another layer, because depending on how the Chiefs choose to bracket or rotate coverage, either receiver could function as the primary target throughout the night. And then comes the secondary. Don Bland cannot afford a single misstep in this matchup. Kansas City thrives when receivers get free off-rub routes and pick concepts, and Bland must maintain balance and discipline. Xavier Worthy might not be the deep shot machine fans expected, but the horizontal speed he brings can shred defenses that lose containment. Rashee Rice attacks leverage, Worthy stretches spacing, and the Chiefs rely on those elements to manufacture openings even when their receivers are not winning purely on talent. In the trenches on the other side, Nate Thomas stepping in at left tackle places a spotlight on the edge battle. George Karlaftis is the only Kansas City edge consistently generating real pressure, and his motor keeps him involved in every snap. If Thomas can neutralize him even halfway, Dallas gains a tremendous advantage. No other edge rusher has shown consistent disruption, which means the Cowboys can build protections that tilt heavily toward whichever side Karlaftis aligns on. The deeper you go into this matchup, the more it becomes clear that the outcome will hinge not on one superstar performance, but on how each unit handles the chaos that Mahomes inevitably creates. It does not matter how precisely a defense prepares, because Mahomes dismantles perfect coverage and punishes the slightest hesitation. That is why the linebackers and safeties must treat every snap as unfinished until the whistle blows. Mahomes will drift, extend, and adjust until he finds the one angle the defense forgot to cover. Dallas must resist the urge to freeze or stare into the backfield. Every route must be plastered through the scramble drill, every communication crisp, every pursuit angle controlled. If the Cowboys allow him to steer the game into his preferred unpredictable rhythm, suddenly all the numbers and tendencies lose value. What complicates matters further is the way Kansas City uses motion and spacing to stress defenses horizontally before the ball is even snapped. They know their receivers are not the most polished group, so instead they rely on creating leverage advantages and forcing defenders to make quick, imperfect decisions. The Cowboys can counter this by shifting to aggressive man coverage paired with tight, physical jams at the line. But that requires discipline, because once a defender loses balance against these quick receivers, the play turns into a foot race that favors Kansas City. That is where someone like Bland must stay calm. He cannot bite too hard on the early stems. He has to trust his technique, trust the help inside when it exists, and force the Chiefs to complete throws that take time to develop rather than handing them free yards. The Cowboys' offense enters the matchup carrying its own set of burdens. Prescott has been sharp for most of the season, yet the offense has had this recurring theme of stalling at the wrong moments. Those lulls cannot happen in a game that might demand 40 or more minutes of sustained pressure on the scoreboard. Dallas must find ways to generate rhythm early, especially if the run game struggles in the opening quarter. Kansas City thrives when they dictate the geometry of the field, forcing teams to press, grow impatient, and invite mistakes. The Cowboys cannot fall into that trap. They must dictate their own tempo by leaning on their quick game, their play-action sequences, and their 2- and 3-man route concepts that isolate defenders in space. One of the biggest deciding factors will be how well Dallas manages first and second down scenarios. Avoiding third and long is not merely a suggestion, it is a requirement. Kansas City turns into a completely different defense when they know the offense is backed into an obvious passing situation. Spagnuolo's creativity becomes a weapon, and his pressure packages can suffocate even the most efficient quarterbacks. Prescott must identify the disguised looks, redirect protections, and trust his hot reads before the pressure arrives. When he is decisive, this offense becomes almost unstoppable. When he hesitates, everything becomes more difficult. The early down play calls will determine whether Dallas can keep Kansas City out of the structural advantages they crave. Then, there is the question of how Dallas will approach the red zone, a persistent point of frustration throughout the year. The Cowboys often move the ball effectively between the 20s, but struggle once the field compresses. The spacing disappears, and the margin for error tightens. Against the Chiefs, who excel at forcing field goals rather than touchdowns, settling repeatedly for 3 points is almost a guaranteed path to falling behind. Lamb must be featured heavily inside the 20, but the Cowboys also need the tight ends, especially Ferguson, to win the leverage battle against Kansas City's safeties and linebackers. If Dallas cannot turn long drives into touchdowns, they will spend the night trailing a team that does not need many possessions to take control of the game. But before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on the Dallas Cowboys. Feel free to share your thoughts on the news in the comments as well. Whispers are swirling around Dallas, and the latest buzz centers on Surtain II, the standout cornerback who has quickly risen through the ranks of NFL scouting circles. Sources close to the Cowboys hint that Surtain has been earmarked as the team's CB1, a designation that instantly elevates expectations. If the chatter proves accurate, Dallas secondary could be on the verge of a transformation, one that would place them squarely among the league's elite defensive backfields. Insiders suggest that the Cowboys' front office has been meticulously crafting a plan to surround Surtain with complementary pieces, recognizing that his combination of size, agility, and instincts could redefine coverage schemes in the NFC East. Rumors indicate that the coaching staff is already drawing up new strategies designed to leverage his speed and ball-hawking abilities while pairing him with a safety core capable of covering any potential gaps. It's said that the team sees Surtain not just as a talented corner, but as a defensive centerpiece, someone who can dictate the rhythm of a game simply with his presence on the field. The buzz has sparked conversations across locker rooms and sports bars alike, with analysts speculating on how this move could impact rival offenses. Some say that Patrick's ability to shadow top receivers without sacrificing zone coverage makes him a rare commodity, an elite talent who could elevate the Cowboys' defense from very good to formidable. Meanwhile, whispers suggest that Dallas is quietly positioning itself for a broader secondary makeover, potentially adding more playmakers around him to create a unit that strikes fear in quarterbacks league-wide. Even among fans, excitement is palpable. Social media chatter paints a picture of anticipation, with supporters imagining scenarios where Surtain shuts down marquee receivers, forces turnovers, and becomes the face of a revitalized defense. While nothing is officially confirmed beyond the internal recognition of his CB1 role, the murmur of Surtain leading the charge has already begun shaping expectations. One thing seems clear. If the rumors hold any weight, the Cowboys' secondary is entering a new era, one that could make opponents think twice before testing the young corner's elite skills. Whether this hype translates to dominance on Sundays remains to be seen. But for now, the league is abuzz, and Dallas fans are dreaming of a secondary that finally matches the star power of the Cowboys' offense. Patrick Surtain II, it seems, may be the spark that ignites it all. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Dallas Cowboys, please subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. We always look forward to your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.